right, welcome back everybody. This is where we talk Dagga. Last week, the Western Cape High Court ruled on a landmark case that will allow users of cannabis to legally cultivate and use it in their homes. The 66-page joint judgment of a full bench of the court, penned by Judge Dennis Davis, was welcomed by the Dagga Party and two other applicants. But to talk a little bit more about what this judgment means, we are joined from our Cape Town studio by Jeremy David Acton. He, of course, is the leader of the Dagga Party. And in our Durban studio, we are joined by Dr. Anwar Jeewa. He's the founder of the Minds Alive Wellness Centre. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning and thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks to both of you for being with us. All right, so let us begin with you, Dr. Jeewa. You're concerned about this judgment, and talk to us about your concerns. What is it that you're concerned about?
You see, our concern is that we are people that are dealing with addiction and treating people with addiction, and our concern is that we have such a huge dependency problem in this country, and we tend to find that more and more people that are coming in for treatment in rehabilitation centers, not just with hard drugs, but also with the so-called soft drugs that was labeled as a soft drug for many years, and that is weed and marijuana. We do understand that there are benefits and there are some good in marijuana, but our concern is about the message that we pass in. I mean, if you look at this ruling now that has come up, suddenly everybody is so excited and happy, especially the younger generation, that's telling you now it's accepted and it's legal and it's allowed. Now you see, I think what is wrong in this whole approach is that there should be better education in making people understand. I can understand that the older generation that have been smoking weed for some years have been able to be responsible. But the younger generation, they're wild and reckless. So that is our concern. There'll be a rise in dependency.
All right, so I get your concerns, and I think it's very much so. You're worried about the youth, you're worried about the treatment centres and what this could lead to. So let me bring Jeremy into the conversation, because Jeremy, you were one of the applicants that, being from the Dagga Party, that wants the legalisation of Dagga. I imagine this is in a way a victory for you. Just talk to us as to why you feel, and in the beginning felt, that it should be legalised.
When I first started using cannabis in meditation when I was about 25 years old, I was looking into the internet to try and understand what the harms were that I was facing. And for a while I could only see the harms of prohibition in my society around me, how it was affecting my fellow citizens. Then the internet came along, and in around about 2005, I had access to the internet properly, and I started researching what harms cannabis was doing to me. And the more I researched, the more into the history, the more I realized that all of the propaganda around cannabis is false propaganda that was propagated by governments for the benefits of corporations who profit from the prohibition. So it immediately became a justice issue. And then in 2011, I got arrested, and I really felt the brunt of the law. And I then began to resist in the courts and take it to the High Court and make it a constitutional defense. We summoned the state to justify the law, and they entirely failed to prove harms and justify criminalization. And out of that came this wonderful judgment.
Yeah. Perhaps you can just tell us a little bit more about what you refer to as how government profits from prohibition. How do they profit?
Well, it costs government to prosecute, to have police using their valuable time and the courts using their valuable time on prosecuting citizens who use cannabis. But the original prohibition in South Africa came about in 1927 as a result of the government, under orders of the British Crown, clamping down on striking miners. So it was a way to oppress workers. However, in the American situation, Cannabis was made illegal so that it wouldn't compete with the burgeoning fossil carbon industry, and certain elements in the corporate oil sector, particularly Standard Oil Company, used the government structures to make it illegal. Well, they first made alcohol illegal to kill ethanol for fuel, and then in 1937, when a machine was invented to process cannabis very efficiently, it suddenly was regarded as a challenge to the existing markets in fossil carbon. Those fossil carbon interests are also the same interests in the pharmaceutical sector, the same big money.
Yeah.
And they then, after taxing it out of the market to keep it away from the fossil carbon market, they then classified it as a drug. And this then served the interests of the pharmaceutical sector because it was a very, very well-known tonic and medicine and preventative medicine for many ailments before it was made illegal.
Yeah,
and now pharmaceutical companies have profited from this resource being denied to people for their health.
All right. Okay. Good. Good understanding there of what you meant by that. We're going to take a break very quickly, but before I do that, Dr. Jeewa, I just want to ask you, before we do take this break, from research, and we do understand that there are positive effects for medicinal purposes when it comes to the use of dagga, but or marijuana, because people are not enjoying it being called dagga, but we'll call it marijuana. What, however, are the negative effects if you do smoke it, and perhaps does it bring on predisposed diseases? Does it lead to other abuse of drugs? Tell us from your perspective.
Well, you see, Jeremy has spoken about the past. You know, he's spoken about a time where we are not exposed to what we've been exposed to today. Times have changed. There's a rise in dependency. South Africa is the international transit route for drugs. And, you know, there are benefits and there are harms. If you look at the medical marijuana that's around in many parts of the world, and including in South Africa, they come in the form of tinctures, they come in the form of liquids and oils. But there are quite a number of the cannabinoids that are used in medical marijuana do not contain the psychoactive ingredient, which is known as THC. Now, when you speak about the harms and the dangers, Jeremy last time also mentioned it's not a gateway drug. But if you do a research throughout every rehab center in the world or in this country, you'll find 95% of the people that are addicted to hard drugs has started off with marijuana. If you look at youngsters that use marijuana, you'll find they become very lethargic, very demotivated, lost of interest. And then now Jeremy said that, you know what, he wants marijuana and the Cape High Court has agreed marijuana to be used at homes. But let's be honest, the type of marijuana that's grown in homes is known as chronic hydroponic skunk, otherwise known as cheese in Johannesburg. And those are very, very high potent marijuana. So once you allow it to be grown in home and smoke in home, you're going to be making and manufacturing very high grade marijuana that's 10 times more potent than the one that's grown in the ground. And that is currently causing a lot of psychosis, serious psychosis and brain damage. You know, Jeremy needs to talk about not what he read on the net, but he needs to talk about what's happening on the ground. We guys are working in the field of rehabilitation. We are seeing the damaging effects on the ground. So we are not talking from textbook or theory. I find it very difficult for pharmaceutical companies to suppress this. I think Jeremy spoke on another radio station about hemp. Now hemp is come from marijuana, but it's not a psychoactive ingredient of marijuana. What they are talking about smoking the psychoactive ingredient of marijuana, which is THC, which definitely gives you a high. You know, so that is why I think that we need to go down on the grassroots level and see what's going on instead of us just saying that, you know, people are against it and people are for it. But let's see the proof is in the pudding. That's what's more important.
All right. Dr. Jeewa, Jeremy, hang tight. We're going to take a break. We'll continue this conversation. And Jeremy, I'll come back to you for a reaction on some of the things that Dr. Jeewa has said after the break. Stay tuned. We'll also read some of your tweets.